Come here. Javier's tone was commanding, yet his gaze held an unmistakable softness as he motioned for Amelia to step closer. She felt fragile, overwhelmed by gratitude for the prince who had achieved the impossible, granting her access to an area closed to the public, so she could see her father, who was battling a deadly virus. The moment felt too heavy for intimacy, yet for a fleeting second, she thought Javier might kiss her when he reached for the collar of her protective suit and pulled her close. "Oh, we shouldn't," she whispered nervously. But instead of leaning in, he adjusted her suit, tightening it at the neck. "Shouldn't what? It's important to leave no gaps where the virus can get in," he said seriously. She nodded quickly, embarrassed for thinking he might have had other intentions. "When you enter the quarantine zone," he continued, his tone firm, "no matter what happens, you cannot remove your mask or gloves. Hear me? I need you safe." His words were unyielding, but she felt a sweetness in her chest. "I don't even know how I can ever thank you for this." "There's no need for that. Max's family is my family now. It's the least I could do." "But still, little by little, I'm starting to realize that these small gestures of yours come at a cost. I hope you're not racking up favors with some shady healthcare executive." Javier shrugged, his tone casual. "I might have to attend an extra ribbon cutting or two. Nothing I'm not used to." Amelia allowed herself a faint smile. "Speaking of favors, I owe you another thank you. I know it was you who made it possible for me to retake my test. I love my job, and I still have it because of you." Javier cocked his head. "You have it because you're brilliant at what you do. It was my fault you even lost it in the first place." "Either way, I want to thank you properly. Let me cook dinner for you at home," she insisted. "If you're looking for ways to thank me," he teased, his voice dipping lower, "I can think of other things we could do at home." The boldness of his suggestion, paired with their closeness, sent a shiver through her, even with the protective gear between them. For a moment, their eyes locked in silence, the air between them charged. Then Javier pulled back, breaking the tension. Sorry, I forgot where we are. I shouldn't distract you from your father. Are you ready to see him?" "I think so," she replied, her heart sinking as she returned to the reality of the situation. "What is it?" A sadness shone in her eyes. A couple of weeks ago, my dad called and said he wanted to see more of Max and I. It's just scary how time works. You know, he was once my favorite person, and I was his." Amelia smiled bittersweetly, and Javier squeezed her hand. "Come on, let's get you to him then." The heavy doors to the quarantine ward slid open with a sterilized hiss, and Amelia followed Javier inside, both clad in full protective suits. Dr. Marquez stood waiting for them, clipboard in hand. Manuel gestured silently, and Javier began moving with quiet determination. He stopped at each bed, pausing to greet the patients. "Good afternoon," Javier said gently, his voice muffled by the mask. "We're here to ensure you receive the best care you need and deserve." Amelia watched from behind, her heart tightening to see Javier's warm and generous bedside manner with the frail patients. With every step he took, Amelia's respect for him grew. They finally reached the isolation room, where Rafael was being kept. Dr. Marquez stepped forward, his face shadowed with concern. "We're here, Amelia," Manuel said. "You have 10 minutes. Make it count." Amelia nodded, taking a shaky breath. "Thank you, Manuel." Then she turned to Javier, managing a faint smile. "And thank you. I'll tell my father that the Prince of Spain brought me to his door, though I'm not sure he'll believe me." Javier stepped closer to the door. Then I'd better tell him myself. Dr. Marquez quickly blocked his path, his voice sharp. Javi, the virus is still highly contagious. You can't go in there. Let Amelia handle this alone. Amelia turned to Javier, her voice anxious. I appreciate the gesture, but please don't. Too many people are counting on you out there to risk it. Javier's gaze was resolute. Look at all the doctors and nurses around us. Yourself included, Manuel. How could I ask others to risk their lives if I'm not willing to do the same? Amelia felt guilt twisting inside her. If anything happened to him, she'd never forgive herself. And yet, she couldn't help but feel moved. Javier reached out and took her hand. Even through the layers of gloves, his warmth seeped into her heart, quickening her pulse. But her eyes couldn't help but dart nervously at the surveillance cameras mounted on the walls. She whispered, Javier, the cameras. Let's not worry about that now, he said calmly, his voice steady. With a firm yet gentle tug, he pushed the door open and stepped inside, still holding her hand. Meanwhile, in the surveillance room, the other 4 members of the Rivera family watched the live feed from the isolation ward and could not believe their eyes. Valentina leaned forward, her eyes wide and glued to the screen. Am I seeing things? Why would the prince hold Amelia's hand? On the monitor, Javier and Amelia were clearly visible, their hands intertwined as they entered the isolation ward together. Though the feed carried no sound, the visuals were enough to send shockwaves through the group. Martha sat silently, her expression thoughtful as she pieced together the connections in front of her. Beside her, Charles was motionless, his dark eyes fixed on the screen. The image of Javier holding Amelia's hand made no logical sense, but felt like a cold blade in his chest. Across from him, Sophie seethed quietly. Her nails dug into her palms as she tried to contain the storm of resentment brewing inside her. A prince lowering himself to such shameless intimacy with someone like Amelia? An unremarkable, single mother? It was infuriating. Her jealousy spiked as she glanced at Charles and saw him overly affected by the sight as well. Her burning envy was almost unbearable. Charles's reaction had confirmed her fears. Amelia was a nuisance, a direct attack on her happiness. Meanwhile, in Raphael's room, Amelia's voice wavered as she stepped closer to his bedside. Dad? Seeing him so frail, her eyes reddened as she sat beside him. How did you get in here? Raphael's weak hand grasped hers. His voice was faint, his confusion evident. He brought me in, Amelia said softly, glancing over her shoulder. Javier stood at the foot of the bed, nodding slightly. Mr. Rivera, he said calmly. Raphael blinked, his disbelief clear. Surely this was a fever dream. He rubbed his eyes, but the prince didn't disappear. Javier spoke again, his words measured. Don't worry too much. The Research Institute is developing a remedy sooner than expected. Focus on staying strong. Amelia clutched her father's hand tightly. Isn't that great news, Dad? Grandma, Sophie, and Valentina are right outside sending you their strength. Raphael pulled her into a hug, but in the process, his hand accidentally brushed against her face and knocked her mask loose. Javier's sharp eyes caught it immediately, his gaze fixed on the mask, now contaminated. He said nothing as Amelia comforted her father, unaware of what had happened. When she finally stood, her heart heavy, she noticed Javier's piercing stare, and her breath caught in her throat. What did I tell you? His whisper was sharp and biting. His intensity confused Amelia, who still didn't realize what happened. We have to leave already? I thought I had 10 minutes. Of all the times to be careless, he muttered, barely containing his frustration. Javier stepped forward and carefully replaced her mask with his own. Only then did Amelia realize what had happened. "I can't take your mask," she protested. "You need it more than I do." She motioned to remove the mask, but Javier's hand gripped her wrist, firm but not harsh. "Don't touch it. If you get sick, they'll stick you here. Do you want to go weeks without seeing your son?" Javier's words were laced with concern, anger, and fear. From his bed, Raphael watched the exchange with tired, curious eyes. The tension between them and the way Javier looked at his daughter was that of a lover. But Amelia with a prince? How could he believe his eyes? When her 10 minutes were up, Amelia returned to her family in the lounge. Her steps were lighter now, though her heart still ached. The worst of her fears had eased. Amelia walked straight to her grandmother, ignoring Charles's brooding stare. "Grandma, don't worry. Dad's condition is stable, and the prince said doctors are developing something that will help. He'll be okay."
"Thank God. That's such a relief to hear,"
Martha replied, her voice steady. Just then, Valentina's sharp voice cut through the room.
"Amelia, you've really outdone yourself this time. Groping Prince Calderon in public. Have you no decency?"
Amelia froze, but quickly recovered, keeping her expression neutral. Valentina pressed on.
"You already shamed this family with one scandal. Are you aiming to make it into the tabloids as the prince's mistress?"
Amelia typically ignored her stepmother's taunts to keep the peace. But lately, she was feeling emboldened to push back against her tormentors. She straightened her back and gave a cool smile. "I suppose you would be the expert on the actions of mistresses, Valentina." Onlookers gasped and shifted in their seats uncomfortably, except for Martha, who smirked at the daughter-in-law she never liked. Valentina blushed, humiliated. She didn't expect Amelia to counter so boldly, much less bring up her past. The tension in the room snapped when the door swung open, and standing in the doorway was none other than Prince Calderon. His gaze landed directly on the startled Valentina.
To find out what happens next, download the Pocket FM app in the next minute to get free access to all episodes of The Royal Accident for free.